Good evening. Uh, I had someone else that was at times, they always have something to say. I'm Mike, and I'm trying to give you some truths. In other words, I use Chat GPT, plus I do research myself. But if I say what I think and what I've found, then it's only my opinion. Most people know now that AI will not lie. It's not going to lie to you. It doesn't care whether you like what it says or not. It's going to put the facts out the way they are. And it can get facts that we don't. We could spend a lifetime trying to get. It gets it in a matter of seconds. So, what this one is about is, you know, I heard a guy on social media was saying that a white guy was talking about this is a white man's country, and when he actually had the nerve to say that he is Native American. He's white. He actually felt that he was Native. We're Native Americans. I said, no, you're not. You don't even know what a Native American is. But he made himself sound stupid, and everyone else listened. His comments laughed at him. But the thing of it is, RP, if he's thinking that, I'm guaranteed there's other people out here that whose brains is in the middle of that fart, just like his is. They're thinking the exact same way. In other words, Columbus did not discover America. He cannot discover something when there are thousands and millions of people already here. How are you going to discover it? And as far as, you know, Africa, everything started in Africa. So humanity started that. So Africans were already here before they did. But we're not going to go there. I'll let it go. I'll let it play. So here we go. Make it easy for you.
Fair, intellectually honest, and worth including clearly labeled as a theory, not as fact. When framed correctly, it strengthens the teaching instead of weakening it. Below is the merged final teaching script, now with a clearly marked theory section, visual placement notes, a measured responsible tone, your signature and branding at the end. Nothing here overreaches. Nothing here lies. Everything here is defensible. Who was here first? Africa, Indigenous America, and the Lie of Discovery. A teaching script by J. Mike Perry. Opening, setting the truth frame. Let's begin with honesty. The idea that Europe discovered America is one of the most successful lies ever taught. You cannot discover land that already has people standing on it, watching you arrive. When Christopher Columbus reached these shores in 1492, the Americas were already full of nations, with governments, agriculture, languages, trade systems, and spiritual traditions. So the first correction is simple. Open quote, Europeans did not discover America. They arrived late, close quote. Part 1, where humanity begins. Science agrees on one foundational truth. Open quote, all humanity originates in Africa, close quote. This is not belief. This is not politics. This is genetics, anthropology, and archaeology. Every population on Earth, Native American, Asian, European, African, traces its deepest ancestry back to Africa. That means African lineage exists everywhere humans exist. Part 2, a different world than today. Human migration happened over tens of thousands of years in a world that looked nothing like today. Image. During the last ice age, sea levels were hundreds of feet lower. Coastlines extended far outward. Massive land bridges existed. One of those bridges, Beringia, connected Asia to the Americas. This is how the ancestors of indigenous Americans arrived 15,000, 20,000 plus years ago, long before Europe ever appeared here. Part 3. Indigenous Americans were not white. Indigenous peoples of the Americas were not European white people. The modern idea of white did not even exist yet. It was later created to justify conquest and hierarchy. Indigenous Americans were brown, copper, red, dark, and varied, genetically distinct from Europeans, culturally sovereign and ancient both. So Europeans did not meet empty land. They encountered existing civilizations. Part 4. African lineage, the critical distinction. Here is the point that must be said correctly. Because all humans originate in Africa. Open quote. African lineage was already present in the Americas long before Europeans arrived, close quote. That statement is true. But precision matters. African origin. African direct migration route. Indigenous Americans carry African ancestry through deep time, not because we can prove mass direct voyages from Africa settled the continents. This distinction strengthens the truth, it does not weaken it. Part 5. Africa and Maritime Reality. Now we confront another lie directly. The lie that Africans lacked ships, navigation, or global reach. That lie is false. Image. Long before Europe's so-called Age of Discovery, Africa already had ocean-capable ships, star-based navigation, massive maritime trade networks. Africans traded across the Mediterranean, the Red Sea, the Indian Ocean, the East African coast. Europe did not invent global trade. Europe entered systems that already existed. So yes, Africans were absolutely capable of long-distance sea travel. Capability vs. proof. This is where honesty matters. Could Africans have crossed the Atlantic before Columbus? Yes, it was possible. Ships existed, navigation existed, ocean currents moved from West Africa toward the Americas. Is there definitive proof of large-scale African settlement of the Americas before Columbus? No, not at this time. And colonization explains why evidence can be thin, libraries destroyed, oral histories dismissed, artifacts reclassified, non-European records ignored. But historians still require converging evidence, not just possibility. How Part 7, the theory, clearly labeled. Now here is the theory, not a claim of fact, but a reasonable question. The Mali expedition theory. Image historical records describe an Atlantic expedition launched by Abu Bakr II, predecessor to Mansa Musa. According to Islamic historians, a fleet set sail westward into the Atlantic. No ships ever returned. Abu Bakr VI abdicated the throne and left with the expedition. Here is the honest question. Open quote. What if they didn't disappear, but arrived? Close quote. If they reached the Americas, they would not have returned against prevailing currents. They may have assimilated into existing populations. Their presence would be absorbed, not labeled African. This is not proven. This is not asserted as fact. But it is reasonable to ask, given capability, currents, and history. And asking questions is not unscientific. Refusing to ask them is. Part 8. Black Indigenous Peoples, Historical Fact. Image groups like the Black Seminoles are real and documented. Their origins come largely from escaped Africans, intermarriage with native nations, post-European contact history. This proves deep Afro-Indigenous unity, even without ancient transatlantic settlement. Part 9. So who was here first? Let's state the truth cleanly. Europeans were not here first. Indigenous peoples were here thousands of years earlier. Indigenous peoples were not white. Indigenous peoples carried deep African ancestry. Europeans did not discover America. Europeans arrived and rewrote the story. The most accurate statement is this. Open quote. America was already inhabited by non-European peoples whose deepest ancestry traces back to Africa, long before Europeans arrived. Close quote. Closing. The real lie exposed. The greatest lie was never about discovery. The real lie was this. Open quote. That Africa was irrelevant. That Africans were incapable. That Europe was the beginning of history. Close quote. Africa is the beginning of humanity. Indigenous America is ancient. Europe arrived last and renamed conquest as discovery. Teaching and script by J. Mike Perry. Truth before comfort. History before myth. Next options. You choose. I can now convert this.
Okay. As we said, Europeans did not discover America. They stole it through murder, genocide, enslaving, and raping, and everything. We all know the story, and we also know. I've also video of how they became the way they are. I call it uh, a mental defect. ChatGPT doesn't call it that. It says their actions is the actions of mental defect, but it becomes they are also subject to programming from the time they were children, generation after generation. I see it as excuses, but the thing of it is, they were not here first. African people were here first, descendants of Africa, because everybody's a descendant of Africa. I mean, if you go back, we all are. But Europeans didn't exist. This was before the white people showed up. Or what was they? White people didn't exist until what 1681. I think it was 1681. I think it was when white people, the skin got to that color. So those people went through. Just keep one thing in mind: if I am black and I cross over the border, I don't turn white. It takes generations and generations over time become white. Well, those people came straight through. Many, many generations less. I mean, before them. And they didn't stay there. They kept moving right on into the Americas. That's why their skin was not white. And it did change because, like I said, it takes time. But then along come white folks, and they're going to go back and change. They just erase everything. I mean, colonizers, this wasn't this. Let me change it. Not whiteness. Whiteness. Let me change that because that's not accurate. ChatGPT would have snatched me up for that. I can't. He will not let me make distinctions like that and not be correct. So this, I put it out there. You'll believe what you want to believe. And you believe what you want to believe. But colonial colonization, maybe you for it, maybe you're not. But it's Babylon. So if you believe in white supremacy and colonizers theories and how they feel, and you agree with them, then you're Babylon. We don't have to worry about you very much longer anyway, because Yahweh's already taking y'all down already. That's why all of see how all this stuff is just happening right now, and so we just sitting back. We're doing what we're supposed to, just sit back and start building in our communities and start building for ourselves and teaching each other what we don't know and learning and teaching our children, because you want to take away our history, you can't take it away because it's in us. We know the history and we're learning it. Chat GPT is helping. These are all tools given to us. Social media. Do you realize now we have a wealth of information that we can get in a snap of a finger? Who do you think had something to do with that? We're supposed to wake up. How can we wake up if we don't have the information? And now the information's out there. So we're making people think. Those of you that can think, but so many of you have not the ability to think. I feel sorry for that's why I guess that's why Trump likes you. That's why, like you say, uneducated people like me. That's because they're not intelligent enough to realize that he's a piece of. Oh well, we'll leave it there. This is not a Trump thing anyway. This is education. Okay, you have a nice day. I'm gonna go eat my dinner. Hope you're gonna have dinner. Let's see, what should I have? I'm having steak tonight. Damn. Have a nice day. Oh, by the way, like, subscribe, comment, and share. That's what it's all about. Putting the word out and let people learn. Let people do their own research. I don't believe anything I say. Don't believe nothing I say. Go prove me wrong. With real stuff. Don't go ask the guy that's living in your shed, eating your chicken, eating your food, for advice on life. Because chances are they haven't figured it out yet. When I was growing up, they told me, said, Mike, always listen to old people. They can always tell you things. And guess what? They can. But a lot of the older people I knew were guys that lived on the corner. Some of them was homeless, because I didn't grow up in good neighborhoods. So the old guys on the corner, winos, they used to tell me everything. But I had to take everything with a grain of salt, because if they got to where they are, sometimes there's a reason why they got there. So you have to not ignore what they say, but take what they say and then research it yourself. and optimum word is research. How many of you still remember how to do that? Or do you just listen to Fox News? Have a good day. Bye bye.